Now we get to the next miracles here, chapter 6, verse 5 through 7. You get this man who was cutting down a tree, and the axe head fell into the water, and he's devastated because he had borrowed this axe. So he goes to Elisha, and Elisha asks, where did it go? He throws a stick in, and the axe head floats, and the man's able to get it. So one of those miracles that seems very, very insignificant, but once again, it's showing God's power over the natural laws of the earth, over the elements that where things aren't working the way we're used to them working because of this divine show of power. Now you get what is probably my favorite, personally, of all of the miracles performed by Elisha. This sequence of events starting in verse 8. The king of Syria warred against Israel and took counsel with his servants, saying, in such and such a place shall be my camp. Now, remember, it was just the chapter before where the captain of the Syrian guard, Naaman, came down to get healed. Now he's back. Now the king of Syria brings this battle against Israel. We don't have the time stamp here, so we don't know how many years or months have passed since Naaman's experience. But the king of Syria says, okay, we're going to camp in such and such a place, and then we're going to make our attack. And they wake up in the morning only to find that the army of Israel is perfectly positioned to stop them. So he retreats and secretly sets up another camp and says, we're going to attack from here. Wakes up in the morning to find that Israel is perfectly positioned to defend. And then he goes to a different place, only to find out that Israel is once again ready to defend. And you'll notice that it says at the bottom of verse 10 that this didn't happen once nor twice. It happened multiple times. And the king of Syria at this time, he might be a little slow in his mind. He takes a little while to catch on to things here. But after multiple failures, he finally realizes something. It dawns on him. And so in verse 11, he says, therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for this thing. And he called his servants and said unto them, will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? Let me translate that into 21st century English. Who's the spy? Which one of you is selling our secrets to the king of Israel? Because this is impossible for him to be perfectly positioned every single time. Impossible. Who is it? Who's given our secrets away? Notice verse 12. And one of his servants said, none, my lord, O king, but Elisha, the prophet that is in Israel, telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. Wow. You have no secrets to this man, this prophet. He knows everything. We don't know who the servant is. A possibility is it could be Naaman himself or somebody who was associated with Naaman and who had even been to Elisha's house. At least the story would have spread that they're aware of Naaman's or of Elisha's existence, and they're telling the king about this. And so I mentioned that the king might be a little slow. Look at verse 13. So the king said, go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. Wait, you were just told that this prophet knows everything you say, even when you're in your bedchamber. So now you're going to command, go and find out where this guy is, spy it out, so we can go and secretly surround his city and capture him? Maybe he's not connecting all the dots here. So they said, well, he's in Dothan. So you can picture this scenario. He sent horses and chariots and a great host, and they came by night and compassed the city about. So can you picture this experience as you have this city and then you have the Syrian army in chariots and horses encompassing the city round about by night. The sun comes up in the morning. The servant who comes out, we don't get a name for the servant in chapter 6. So notice as the story picks up the next morning, verse 15, when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, an host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots, and his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? So you can picture this kid coming out wiping the sleep from his eyes, yawning, stretching, and uh-oh, we've got problems, because the entire city is surrounded by these enemy horses and chariots, probably with drawn swords, waiting for the command to go in and attack. And he calls for Elisha to come out. Now, can you picture Elisha coming out and throwing his hands in the air, shaking his knees together, and shouting in a loud voice in fear? That image just doesn't cross our mind, because what you get instead is he comes out and he says, "Fear not." And yet this young servant is looking at the army saying, "How can I not fear? We're totally surrounded. There's no escape. Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them." I'm going to be so bold as to say that if you forget everything that you read in this particular section of scriptures this week, or that we've talked about, don't forget this phrase: "They that be with us are more than they that be with them." Can you picture the confused look on the servant's face? What are you talking about? Our city's small. Dothan isn't a big metropolis. And this whole village is surrounded, because the young man is focused horizontally, not vertically. He's not looking up. Notice verse 17, Elisha prayed and said, "Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see." And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. Keep in mind, Elisha has already seen a chariot of fire with a flaming horse with Elijah's departure. Now he sees the mountain of the Lord, the whole sky filled with these. And then he sees the Syrian army down below, and he's not afraid. Have you noticed that our prophets today, they don't stand at the pulpit of General Conference and instill fear in the people. They instill confidence in the Lord, faith in Christ. Yeah, there are bad things happening. Yes, the enemy seems to be combined and very numerous, but they never transmit a spirit of fear or of deep anxiety for the future. There's always this steady, quiet confidence that comes because seers of the Lord can see more than just the opposition and more than just the negative influences of the world. They can see the spiritual backup that we have at our beck and call to help us. They that be with us are more than they that be with them.
It's interesting you use the word seer, because what you have symbolized in this text is a servant who didn't see, but then his eyes are opened and he sees God's power, and then the enemy is blinded. This is what God does. He provides light to his people and darkness to those who choose not to follow him.
So you can picture, in my mind, this event is amazing because you've got these people in these chariots with probably swords ready to go. They're waiting for the command, go get him. And then they have no idea what is above them. They have no idea why this man isn't just scared out of his mind. And they have no idea why a command is given and all of a sudden they can't see, because those flaming horses and chariots have come down and these people are now smitten with blindness. And Elisha comes out and says, yeah, the person you're looking for, he's not here, but I'll lead you to him. And so you can picture this army, this line of blind people going through the wilderness down to the capital city of Israel, the kingdom of Israel, as he's leading this entire enemy army right into the capital city. And then another miracle, he removes the blindness when he's got them in front of the king of Israel, at which point the king of Israel is just giddy. Shall I smite them? Shall I smite them? Can I kill them now? And Elisha says, no, you're not going to kill them. You're going to give them bread and water, have them make an oath, and send them home. Send them off in peace. There are always countless ways that you can apply these stories and liken them to our lives today. One thing to consider is when the enemy forces come, if you'll listen to the Lord, He'll help you defend yourself. And occasionally, when it feels like you're totally surrounded, like there is zero escape, like you have nowhere else to turn, then perhaps you're spending too much time looking at your problems and not enough time looking at the solution. Because the solution's always going to be up. It's going to be raising your sights, looking to God to then live. And when you look to the solution, all of a sudden those problems that seemed so overwhelming, that seemed so debilitating and constricting, all of a sudden you realize that you have power at your fingertips that the Lord has offered you in this covenant connection with Him that you can use to now deal with this opposing force or these opposing trials and tribulations and oppositions in your life. So again, if you're feeling overwhelmed, perhaps spend a little more time looking upward, pleading with the Lord to open your eyes to see that they that be with you are more than they that be with them.